Alright, today we're going to be going over what are x and y intercepts. Now we've already really gone over y-intercepts. Visually on a graph, a y-intercept is where our line intercepts with, it crosses the y-axis. So this would be our y-intercept. Because remember, this is our y-axis, this is our x-axis, y-axis, x-axis. That means similarly, the x-intercept is going to be right here. My x-intercept is where my line crosses the x-axis. So this is my x-intercept. Alright, on this one, go ahead and pause the video and ask yourself which one's the y-intercept and which one's the x-intercept. Alright, welcome back. Again, the x-intercept is where my line crosses the x-axis. It intercepts the x-axis. So right here is the x-intercept. The y-intercept is where the line crosses the y-axis. So this is the y-intercept. Now we can identify x and y intercepts from tables, from equations, and from graphs. So if I'm identifying it in a table, logically speaking, the x-intercept means that I've moved somewhere on the x, but I don't have a y. So on the x-intercept, that means that y is equal to 0. Similarly, on the y-intercept, that means the x is equal to 0. So on this table, for example, do they already give you one of those? Absolutely, they already gave you the x-intercept. And now from here, if I wanted, I could still go ahead and find my y-intercept. If you remember, that means that I've got to sort of expand out this part of the table. If you remember from our old work with tables, so we'd have x and y. That would be -1, 6, unknown value for 0, 1, 4. What has to live in between those two for this power to make sense? 5. So that means that if they asked you, my x-intercept would be the point 5, 0, because that came straight from my table. And coincidentally, my y-intercept would be 0, 5. Because I can solve that out using the methods that I've already been using. Alright, let's look at another one. So here, which one did they give me? Pause the video and ask yourself, which one did they give me and how am I going to solve the other one? Alright, welcome back. So they gave me when x is 0, which means they gave me where it crosses the y-axis. So that's my y-intercept. Now to figure out my x-intercept, I've got to continue this table until I can figure out when y is 0, because I got to figure out what's the x value when y is -1, and what's the x value when y is 0. And my x's, they're just counting up by 2's, so I continue counting up by 2's, and I find my x-intercept. So my x-intercept is the point 10, 0, and my y-intercept is the point 0, -5. Alright, for the last problem, I want you to pause the video again and try it on your own. Alright, welcome back. So they gave us the x-intercept because y was 0. Now we've got to try to figure out the y-intercept. That's going to live in between these 2 points. However, I can already tell if I start expanding out my table, it's not necessarily going to be intuitive to me per se to be able to figure out the y-intercept unless I'm very comfortable counting by fractions. However, if I can logic out from here, the x-intercept is going to be perfectly in between the point -3 and 3. The y-intercept is going to be perfectly in between the point 2 and 3. What's halfway in between 2 and 3? 2.5. So my y-intercept is 2.5. If you don't like that method, you can always do it algebraically. I'm about to go through how to find this algebraically with a bunch of other examples, so I'm not going to necessarily waste time on that now. So that means your x-intercept is the point -9, 0, and your y-intercept is the point 0, 2.5. So you can find your x and y intercepts from visually on a graph, finding where the line crosses the x-axis, that's your x-intercept. It'll always take the form of some x value, comma 0. The y-intercept, similarly, is where the line crosses the y-axis. It'll always take the point 0, comma that y value. And then you can always continue patterns from a table or look at what they already gave you. Now I'm going to show you the last method, which is figuring out what is the x and y intercept algebraically from an equation. So if I have an equation such as y equals -4x plus 5, for example, what is the y-intercept? Well, that's already at the point 0, 5, because this point tells you the y-intercept always. To find the x-intercept, that's going to be some number, comma 0. So what we've got to do is you plug in 0 for y. So when I have the equation y equals -4x plus 5, you replace the 0 where you have a y, and now you solve for x. So how do I get this x by itself? Well, I've got to subtract 5 from both sides. That cancels. I get -5 equals -4x. Divide by -4 on both sides. I get negative divided by a negative is a positive. 5/4 is x, and it's completely okay just to leave it as a fraction. So then you get 5/4, comma 0. Alright, for the next one, I want you to pause the video, and I want you to try it on your own. -1/2 x plus 4. I want you to try it on your own. Just because you got a fraction, don't freak out. You can always use the Desmos calculator that I've linked under remote learning resources. I would recommend using that for fractions if you're not that comfortable with them. Alright, welcome back. So our y-intercept they gave us, as always, your y-intercept, so that's going to be 0, 4. Our x-intercept we know will be some number, comma 0. So we take our equation, I'm just going to rewrite it for clarity purposes, and then we plug in 0 for y. Now we've got to try to get x by itself, so I subtract 4 from both sides. I get -4 equals -1/2 x. Now I'm dividing by -1/2, which is the same thing as multiplying by -2. If you don't believe me, ask Mr. Morrison or look it up online. Remember, whenever you are dividing -4 by -1/2, you keep, change, flip, just like that. So you get 8 equals x. So that means my x-intercept occurs at 8, 0. Good luck on the assignment. It is on Quiz-Is this time because this is the one topic that's not on Delta Math, and it is the last new assignment of the whole year, really. Everything else is just review or a quiz over this. This is the last new topic. Good luck. Reach out if you have any questions.